Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Remnant Christian Book Reading channel. I'm so happy you guys have come back to listen to more of the Elijah Project. Now, we're starting a new part. I believe this is, it's part 4. Crazy. We're already in the ending part of the book. Finally. This part is called The Chamber of Lies. Interesting. The Chamber of Lies. Let's just jump into it. Why not, right? So today we're going to be doing just 2 chapters, and then next time when I post, we're going to do 3. And then we're going to keep doing 3 until we finish. And I don't think it's that many chapters, so we'll see. Maybe I might just do a marathon and finish it all. Just let me know in the comments what you guys want. If you want a marathon to just finish it all in one big video, let me know. If you would like to keep doing the smaller videos, let me know as well. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. The Chamber of Lies. Part 4 has its own Bible verse. It's in James chapter 1 verses 2 to 4. And it reads like this. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Chapter 1. To the Rescue. That's impossible! Willard looked up from the computer in the back of the rattling RV. What is? He asked. How can Elijah send us a message? 13-year-old Piper blew the hair out of her eyes. He doesn't even know how to turn on a computer. She scowled back at the message on the monitor. Don't try to save me. Shadow Man has weapons you don't understand. Elijah. Willard, Piper's geeky inventor friend, shoved up his glasses with his chubby sausage-like fingers. Willard liked to eat more than your typical guy. Actually, more than your typical 2 guys. Run it past me again. Who exactly is this shadow guy? Who isn't the right word, Piper said. More like what? Zach, her 16-year-old brother, exclaimed. We heard him speak back at Ashley's. Heard? Willard asked, shoving his glasses up his face again. It's a long story, but believe me, the dude is not someone you want to mess with. Everything all right back there? Dad called from the driver's seat of the RV. He and Mom sat up front as they drove through the twisting mountain road. The past few days had been rough on them. First, they had to leave the kids behind while they acted as decoys for the bad guys. Then, they'd been kidnapped. Then, they'd lost little Elijah. Then, they'd wandered deep into mysterious caves and caverns filled with supernatural beings. Definitely not good times. In fact, on the fun scale of 1 to 10, they were somewhere below 0. But at least they had Piper and Zach and their 2 friends, Willard and Cody. Together, the 4 kids sat at the back table. Don't worry about us, Zach called up to his parents. Everything's cool. He shot a look to Piper, telling her to keep quiet about the message on the computer screen. She couldn't have agreed more. After all that Mom and Dad had been through, they didn't need to worry about strange new weapons. Suddenly, Dad hit the brakes and everyone flew forward. Piper screamed and nearly hit her head on a cupboard, but Cody reached out and caught her in his arms. As the RV shuddered to a stop, he looked down at her and asked, Are you okay? His eyes were worried. Piper gazed into his incredible blue eyes and half croaked, Yeah." She always half croaked when she looked into his eyes. But it wasn't just his eyes. Everything about him made her a little unsteady on her feet, and a little fluttery in her heart. Zack called up to Dad. "What's going on?" "Looks like a detour," Dad said. A sheriff approached the side door of the RV. Zack rose and opened it for him. The man stuck his head inside. "Afternoon, folks." Piper caught her breath. He looked exactly like the homeless person who had helped them in the streets of L.A., and the customer who had helped them in the mountain restaurant, and the angel who had fought for them in the cavern. Piper stole a look to Zack. The way his mouth hung open, she knew he'd noticed it too. "Is there a problem, officer?" Dad asked. The man nodded. "Highway is out. You'll have to turn around. But there's dirt road about a mile back. It'll take you where you're going." Mom frowned. "How do you know where we're—" "And be careful," he interrupted. "You folks still have plenty of dangers ahead. But you'll all be okay. You've got plenty of folks looking out for you." It was Dad's turn to frown. "I don't understand. Plenty of folks?" "That's our job," the officer smiled. "To look after the good guys." With that, he stepped back outside. But not before catching Piper's eye and giving her a quick little wink. Piper could only stare. Who was this man? She moved to the window for a better view. By the time she arrived, he was gone.
"They're coming this way."
Monica Spector stared across the picnic table to Shadow Man. Looking at the massive bulk of darkness always gave her creeps. Actually, looking at him didn't give her the creeps. Not being able to see him did. Well, at least not all of him. There was something strange about the way the man always sucked up light, even in the brightest day.
"Want me to hurt them?"
Bruno, her brainless assistant, asked. He sat on the bench beside her. To make his point, he reached into his coat for his gun. A thoughtful gesture, if it hadn't been for the soda can sitting on the table beside him. The soda can that he knocked over with his elbow. The soda can that dumped its fizzy contents all over Monica's lap. She leapt to her feet, wiping the soda away. "You idiot!"
"I'm sorry,"
he said. For a moment he looked puzzled, wondering if he should help her or use his gun to shoot the offending can. Shadow Man saved him the trouble. With a wave of his arm, he sent Bruno's gun flying out of his hand and into the side of Monica's parked van. It gave an ominous thud, then fell to the ground.
"Your weapons are of no use,"
he hissed.
"Not in this battle."
Monica glanced nervously at her two assistants. Bruno, who was as big as he was stupid, and Silas, who was as skinny as, well, as Bruno was stupid. The three of them had spent many days tracking down Elijah, and now, with the help of Shadow Man, they had finally captured him. But instead of looking scared, the 6-year-old sat on a nearby rock, humming happily to himself. Talk about strange. But instead of looking scared, the 6-year-old sat on, talk about strange. Stranger still, Monica had never heard Elijah speak. In fact, she was beginning to wonder if he even knew how. A low rumble filled the air. A vehicle was coming up the dirt road they parked alongside. Is that them? Silas asked. Shadowman grinned.
Yes. They've come for the boy.
Shouldn't we do something? Monica screeched. She didn't mean to screech. It was just her normal voice. At least get the brat out of sight. Shadowman turned to look at her. At least, she thought he was looking at her. It was hard to tell with his eyes always in shadows.
After the accident, I shall take care of the child. You three will stay behind and search for survivors.
Accident? Bruno said. I don't see any accident.
You will.
Shadowman smiled, and for the briefest moment, Monica thought she saw teeth. Or was it fangs?
You will.
The rumbling grew louder. Shadowman turned to Elijah.
Boy, to the vehicle.
Monica watched as Elijah rose and turned toward Shadowman's enormous Hummer. The child's legs began walking, but they seemed to move against his will. He tried to stop, but one stiff step allowed another until he arrived at the truck. The driver, a huge bald man who stood guard, opened the back door. Monica cleared her throat nervously. Shouldn't we hide too? We're right next to the road. They're bound to see us.
There is no need. The crash shall prevent it.
But I don't see no crash, Bruno insisted.
Watch and be amazed.
Wow, that's crazy. Chapter 2. The Crash. I wonder what's gonna happen. Dad? Zach called from the back of the RV. If this is a detour, how come we don't see any other cars? Or detour signs? He's right, Mom agreed. I've got a weird feeling about this. Willard motioned to the computer monitor. Check it out! Zach looked up and saw the letters to another message appearing on the screen. Deer coming from right. Tell Dad to look out his window. Dad, Zach called. Look to your right. What? To your right! Look to your right! Now! Dad turned just in time to see 4 deer appear at the side of the road and dart in front of the RV. He cranked the wheel hard, veering to the left, barely missing them, but sending the RV into a squealing skid. Shadowman watched with displeasure as the RV slid across the road, just missing the deer. He turned to the Hummer and shouted at Elijah,
And you think that will stop me?
He raised his arm toward the cliff, looming over to the right of the roadway. Several giant boulders came loose and began to fall, bouncing toward the RV. Zach was too busy fighting to keep his balance in the swerving RV to notice another message forming on the computer screen. Rocks! Look out! The first boulder slammed into the vehicle's side. The force was so powerful that it ripped the steering wheel out of Dad's hands. He grabbed it and fought to regain control of the vehicle. For a moment, it looked like he had it. But then the second boulder hit, and then the third, and the fourth. The RV was batted around like a ping pong ball as rocks continued to hit it. Hang on! Dad shouted. Dishes fell from the cupboard, crashing to the floor. Everyone was yelling. Zack stumbled, tried to catch himself, and was thrown down, but only for a second. Before he realized what was happening, he was thrown into the left wall of the RV, then the roof. They were rolling. Bodies flew past him, legs kicking, people screaming. Glass exploded around him. There was more yelling as he hit the opposite wall, then finally the floor again. Well, not actually the floor, more like Willard. Ugh! Zack landed on top of him, grateful for all the junk food and extra donuts the chubby kid had eaten, cushioning his fall. Sorry, Willard. That's okay, the kid groaned. Zack scrambled to his feet. He looked around to see if anyone was hurt, and then he saw Dad slumped over the wheel, blood trickling down the back of his head. That's when he panicked. Dad! Monica watched with amazement as the RV finally finished rolling and landed back on its wheels, filling the air with dust and smoke.
Well, don't just stand there,
Shadow Man hissed. She turned to see the massive bulk of a man stepping into his Hummer.
Go! Take care of the others.
Monica wasn't exactly sure what he meant by taking care of, but she could make a guess. She motioned to Silas and Bruno to follow her toward the RV, then pointed to Bruno's weapon lying next to her van where Shadow Man had flung it. Don't forget your gun! As Piper staggered to her feet, she could hear Zack coughing and shouting, Dad! Are you all right? She called out to her mother, Mom, are you okay? Yes, it's just my leg. It's pinned against the dash, but I'm all right. How's everybody back there? Zack was crawling toward the front as Piper glanced at Cody and Willard. They were also rising to their feet. Cody was wincing, holding his right arm, but everyone else seemed okay. We're fine, Piper shouted back. She glanced around the RV. The kids may have been fine, but the place was a mess. Dishes thrown out of the cupboard, everything tossed around and dumped on the floor. It was as bad as Zack's room. Well, not quite, but close enough. How's Dad? She called. He's unconscious, Zack shouted. Piper sucked in her breath. It's the TV, Mom cried. It fell off the shelf and hit the back of his head. Mike? Michael! Zack was kneeling beside him. Dad, can you hear me? Piper's heart pounded as she moved forward to join them. Dad! She heard a groan and saw him move his head. He's coming around, Mom said. Mike, can you hear me? Michael, can... She was interrupted by the voice of a woman approaching from outside. Anybody alive in there? Piper frowned. She heard that voice before somewhere. More than once. But where? A second voice joined it. Want me to blow off the door? Not yet, you idiot, the woman screeched. Try opening it first. Oh, yeah. The man gave a nervous laugh. Why didn't I think of that? Piper had her answer. There was no mistaking the rudeness of the woman or the lack of intelligence of her assistant. And because of their missing manners and brain cells, these were not the people Piper wanted to meet again ever. Zack must have recognized the voices too. Dad, he said. Dad, can you turn on the engine? Dad, can you get us out of here? But of course Dad couldn't. He was too busy just trying to open his eyes. Anybody in there? The woman's voice was much closer. Any second now she'd open the door. Here, Zack said to his father. Let me scoot you over. What are you doing? Mom asked. He shifted Dad far enough to ease behind the wheel. He turned on the ignition. The motor ground away, but nothing happened. He tried again. Zack! He tried a third time, and the engine finally turned over. It wasn't happy about it, but at least it was running, and just in time. Suddenly, the side door was yanked open, revealing a woman with flaming red hair. Beside her stood the biggest of her assistants, but they only stood there a second before Zack dropped the RV into gear, punched the accelerator, and took off. Zack! Everyone shouted. Well, everyone, but the red-haired woman and her goon. It's hard to shout when you're busy leaping out of an RV's doorway so your head doesn't get ripped off. Shadow Man stared out his Hummer's window, watching Monica and her bungling assistant start chasing after the RV. Despite dozens of dents, scratches, and broken windows, it still ran. This surprised Shadow Man, and for a moment he didn't understand how it was possible. Unless... He stole a look at Elijah, who was seated at the back. Was this more of the boy's trickery? He knew the child had powers, but this? Shadow Man couldn't be sure. All he knew was that the little brat was humming again. He hated when the boy did that. He could make him stop, of course. But then the child would simply find another way of trusting and thanking, of praising the enemy. The enemy. That was the whole reason Shadow Man was in this mess in the first place. The enemy had finally started his preparation to bring about the end of days. And for some unknown reason, he had chosen little Elijah as one of his most important tools in bringing about that end. Shadow Man's lips curled into a tiny smile. Well, let the enemy choose whom he would, and let the boy hum away, because very soon the child would turn his back on the enemy. Very soon Shadow Man would bring Elijah over to his side of the battle, to where the real power lay. All it would take was a little time in the chamber. A little time to show the child the wonders and glories that would be his if he would deny the enemy and follow Shadow Man's master. Wow, that is the end of the first two chapters of the Chamber of Lies. What is the chamber? What is that? Could it be a dungeon type of thing? Could it be... I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's a Mickey D's. I can tell you that much. Wow. And what do you all think about how Elijah's sending them messages? Is it crazy? But you know what they say? With God, all things are possible. So maybe God is allowing Elijah to send emails. Crazy, but could happen. And what do you think about that police officer slash angel slash homeless man slash person? Who is he? Is he their guardian angel? What could he be? Leave your comments down in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and answer them, and we can discuss it further. Anyways, thank you all for watching the Remnant Christian Book Reading channel of part 4 of the Elijah Project, the Chamber of Lies. Have a good night or a good day. God bless you all.